The Life of Coretta Scott King by Lillian Forman. Introduction. On July 4, 1776, a group of men met in Philadelphia and approved the Declaration of Independence. With the stroke of a pen, they declared the American colonies free of Great Britain's rule. Anxious to guarantee Americans the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, these men, with their drafting of the Constitution in 1787, made the United States a democratic republic. In a democratic republic, the people elect their own representatives. These representatives serve at the will of the people, who can remove them from office. Therefore, it is in American politicians' interests to write laws that benefit the majority of the people. Sometimes the majority of the people persuade their representatives to write laws that are unfair to a smaller group of people. Such was the case for years in the United States, when numerous state governments passed and enforced laws in violation of the Constitution that discriminated against African Americans. This book tells the story of an African American woman, Coretta Scott King, who, by partnering with her husband, the famous civil rights leader Martin Luther King, Jr., helped strike down these laws. Chapter 1. Obadiah Scott, The Courage to Succeed. Coretta Scott was born on April 27, 1927, in Heiberger, Alabama, near the city of Marion. She was the second of three children, born to Bernice McMurray and her husband Obadiah Scott. Coretta had an older sister named Edith and a younger brother called Obadiah. The Scott and McMurray families, although not wealthy, were deeply respected within Heiberger's African American society. Obadiah's father had been the preacher's steward at Marion's Mount Tabor AME Zion Church. Obadiah was made steward when his father died. He also served as the chairman of the church's board of trustees. Meanwhile, Bernice served as the church's deaconess, stewardess, and choir pianist. The Scotts and McMurrays were prominent members of the African American communities of Heiberger and Marion. However, they were still victimized by the racism that characterized the South at the time. During the 1920s, African Americans endured far more racism than what is encountered today. However, the Scotts were singled out for especially harsh treatment due to Obadiah's success. Although poor by today's standards, Obadiah, through hard work, had risen to a position above his place, as Southern whites called it. Obadiah started life in poverty. His parents, after years of hard work, earned enough money to buy a 300-acre farm. As landowners, the Scotts were better off than the majority of their African American neighbors, who were forced to rent land as sharecroppers. Still, they were not wealthy. Obadiah, inspired by his parents' example, dedicated himself to a lifetime of hard work. He started his career at a local sawmill, where he earned $3 a day. In 1920, Obadiah married Bernice. Obadiah's father let him build a house on the farm so that Obadiah could start his own family. Obadiah couldn't afford to build a large house. The house he built consisted of a single bedroom, a kitchen, and a porch. A bedroom fireplace and a wood-burning kitchen stove provided heat. The Scotts did not have running water. However, they considered themselves lucky to have their own well in the backyard. Despite the tough conditions, Obadiah worked hard throughout the 1920s to save money and provide for his growing family. Unfortunately, the Great Depression, which followed in the wake of the stock market crash of October 1929, wiped out Obadiah's savings. To keep his family going, Obadiah had to borrow money from his boss at the sawmill, who was white. Obadiah had to turn over each of his paychecks to his boss in order to pay back his loan. To make matters even more difficult, Obadiah's boss claimed that Obadiah owed him more money than he actually did. Obadiah lived in a society that didn't care if a white man exploited an African American. He had no option other than to work harder to pay back what his boss demanded. Obadiah spent his spare time in the late 1920s and early 19...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?